everybody, and welcome to another episode of Kinky Politics. We are so glad to have you here. I am your host, Kai, and this is your host as well, Jordan. Dun,
Hello,
dun.
everyone. How's it going?
For those, actually, no one knows, but we spoke a couple weeks back and discussed doing the show because, as you now know, Chris has left the show, and I was looking for a co-host. And during the time that Chris was on vacation, Jordan was available to come in and basically substitute and be on the show with us. And I asked him, I was like, shortly after Chris decided he had to leave, I asked Jordan, and Jordan was available. So it all worked out. So this is a great opportunity for us to get to know Jordan and how we will then run the show. It may be a little different than the way Chris and I had formally run the show, and we might do a little bit of changing around, maybe even changing the names. We're still not sure yet. The title of the show, we're still not 100% sure yet, but we are talking. And so today we just want to give an idea of what it will look like in the future, or what our conversation and our rapport will look like, and give you guys an idea of who Jordan will be, and actually who he is, not who he will be, but who he is. So Jordan, give us a little bit of context as to who you are, where you're from, and maybe what your interest is in politics.
Well, I like long walks on the beach, and, apple pie and frisbee. Yeah. So, oh my gosh, trying to condense my life down. So I was born in Pennsylvania. I'll start with that. And I've lived in Ohio for middle school and high school. I went to Indiana, which is where I met you, and we did theater at Purdue. And I lived in New York for a year. Then I switched coasts and went to California, which is where I've been for the past 10 years. And I studied acting for a long time, loved it. Best time of my life. College was a blast. You were there for most of it. And we had a good time, a lot of cool shows, a lot of fun shows. And then I got more into photography as I got older. And part of that was a genuine interest in photography and making photos that people liked. And part of it was I decided that I just wanted to do photography more than I wanted to do acting. At the end, I went through a master's program in acting here at Cal State Fullerton down the road, and it was a good program. I was able to do more photography there. I met my wife there, Amy, and now we have 3 kids, and I'm a full-time photographer. And we're moving from Southern California now. We're actually in the middle of moving up to Sacramento, where we're going to be living in a tiny mountain town called Colfax, which is it looks like a really cool place. I actually have not been there yet, which is kind of funny to say I'm moving to a place I've never even looked at before, like in person. Right. Looked at, but that's life sometimes. You just got to go where the opportunities are, and right now that's where the opportunities are. So in a super small nutshell, that's my life. But if you have any questions, I can answer those too.
Yeah, and the other question I had was, what's your interest in politics? Since obviously this is Kinky Politics. What? Tell me a little bit about where you are in terms of the world of politics, traditional politics.
Totally.
Yeah, all of it.
So I think there's 2 things that would be most relevant and interesting. Is first, I lean left pretty hard as far as politics go. But I will say this, I do listen to everyone. I'm not like crazy, leaning one way or the other. I try to come at most issues from a pretty neutral point and listen to both sides, but I do lean left. As far as politics in general go, though, I read news constantly. First thing I do when I wake up, people used to read a newspaper. Now I read the newspaper that's in Google News, and I usually read news at least 3 times a day, if not more. It's kind of a habit just to whip out the news and see what's going on, at any certain time of day, just because news is always happening. I also think it's really important to be an informed citizen of the country you're in, and what's going on. Because so many times, oh my gosh, you look online and you have people that are talking about things that they have no idea about. Just today, I saw someone talk about Dr. Seuss. Do you remember recently what happened? How the family, Dr. Seuss's family that runs his company and the publishing and the books, recently decided not to publish a few of the books. And someone had commented that they have one of the books and they want to sell it. And this other guy comments and he's like, I want to buy it just to spite the government. And the government is not involved at all in not printing that book. There's nothing with the government. That's just the family decided they didn't want to publish it. So anyway, using that example, I think it's important to understand issues and when the government is involved and when it's not involved, and different sides and yeah. So I believe reading news is important and staying informed. So that's something that I do every day. It's sort of like it's my thing. Some people are OCD about different stuff. I'm OCD about reading the news. So
cool. And since the show is about really the in simple words, politics, meaning sex, money, and power, which are for the most part taboo subjects. They're not really, dinner.
You don't talk about them very much at the dinner table. Yeah.
Oh.
Talk about sex, kids.
Exactly. But, on this show, it's important. I think the reason why Chris and I had started it was because we also realized how important it is to talk about sex, power, and money. Mm-hmm. And the fact that as a society and as a culture, we steer away from that. Obviously the things we were told not to talk about are politics, religion, and sex. You never talk about those things to people you don't know, and even to people you do know, you keep those under wraps. But I think the freedom that Chris and I had on the show was that we really felt, I guess, for lack of better words, liberated to get an opportunity to talk freely about our ideas on those subjects. Mm-hmm. So how do you feel about, talking about sex, money, and power?
It comes pretty easy. Ask my wife. I love talking about it. I talk her ear off about politics all the time, and I'm always telling her, hey, did you read what's happening? And she's like, nope. And I'm like, well, let me tell you. And so I'll tell her, about what I read. And we talk about sex all the time, sex and relationships, I should say, because I really do believe 100% that talking about sex in your relationship, power dynamics in your relationship as well, mm-hmm. About who does what in your relationship, who's watching the kids, who's doing the dishes, why are we moving? Are we moving for her? Are we moving for me? That's power. Who decides those things? And we have a very good partnership, and that's what I would call it, is a partnership where we split everything in life. Her desires and dreams are just as important as mine. We support each other 100%, whether we succeed, whether we fail, doesn't matter. I think it's just important that the power dynamic in a relationship for the past, ever had been male dominated, and it hasn't been very fair. So, in our relationship, when we talk about sex and we talk about power, we try to find equity and equality between ourselves. And so I like to talk about those subjects with anyone that's willing. But you're right, it's hard to find people that are comfortable talking about politics or talking about sex and relationships. I love listening to different podcasts that talk about those things. Dak Shepard, I don't know if you've ever listened to him. No? Oh my gosh.
Have you heard of
Like really good. And I think I told you about the other one before. It's Dan
Savage?
Yeah.
Yes.
Dan Savage's Lovecast. Amazing. I mean, just reading about like current events in sex and relationships, or listening rather. He answers readers' questions. They call in about relationships, and it's so interesting. We listen to it together, my wife and I, so we can kind of be like, well, what would we do in that relationship? And what do we think about that? We've never thought about some of the things that people call in and ask about. And it makes your relationship stronger when you talk about power and sex, because you understand each other better, you communicate better. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does,
Yeah.
especially for someone. I mean, hey, I'm a big proponent of talking about sex, money, and power. And I don't know if have you ever read the book Sex, Money, and Power?
I have not actually, no.
Okay, by Sarah Pascoe. It's amazing. It literally talks about like why humans are the way they work, the way they are,
Mm-hmm.
and the behavior of sex, money, and power. And it's amazing. So I recommend that.
I'll also check that out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I have a list of audiobooks that I'm queuing up, so I'm going to have to add that to the queue then.
Yes, I did the audio version too, and it's funny. Yes, it is. She's British and she narrates it herself. So in the beginning, she's a little sort of monotone. Not that all British people are monotone, but
no, I'm listening to like how to win friends and influence people, and it is the guy talks like this almost the whole time, and it was recorded. Oh my God, it feels like it was recorded in 1960, and I think it was close to that, because like oh my Lord, yeah. Versus a reading today where it would be like yada yada da 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 da, the cadence and the dictation. It's so old. It's funny, so it's good.
Yeah, I hate that. I mean, I love audiobooks, but like if the narrator's bad, probably not gonna.
Then you're gonna sleep. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. But excuse me. But it's good. Sorry, something caught in my throat. But anyway, it's a really good book. But I figured I would ask you some questions so that some additional questions outside of the typical like where you're from and things like that. And hear how you respond. So, let me just pull up my little notepad here. I'm going to ask you a would you rather couple of questions here.
I love would you rather. My wife, like, she has this list of questions. Like, she gets off Instagram and we do it all the time. I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yay. Okay. But I don't know how good they are. But we'll see. All right. Would you rather go into the past and meet your ancestors, or go into the future and meet your great grandchildren?
That's a tough one. Honestly, I think I'm a future guy, just because like I find the past extremely interesting, but I also know that like I think the customs, like while being there back in time, the customs and the beliefs would drive me batshit crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, racism is bad now, and so is sexism. But
oh my God, I made a scream.
Like it'd be awful. No, it would be. It'd be awful. So like, I don't think I'd want to go revisit the past. And I know a little. Like I know it's funny because I only know about my grandfather. I don't know about like. They're from Poland, right? Most of my dad's side is from Poland, and my mom's side is Irish and German. So, I think they're people of the earth. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I don't think I'd want to go back in time. I think I'd like to go to the future and see the kind of technology and all the crazy stuff that's happening. And hopefully we haven't set the planet on fire with global warming and all the other fun stuff that's happening. But I do think that they'll solve a lot of those problems too. in the future, and to see like the solutions they've come up with, to see if we've been able to go outside the solar system, as a people, would be really cool. I think I would love to go to the future if I had to choose between the two.
Fair enough. Okay. Would you rather have more time or more money?
Oh, more time, because I can make money with more time. And it's like I get to the end of each day and I'm like, oh, if there was 8 more hours or 24 more hours in a day, it'd just be, I could sleep, I could do all these things that I wanted to do. 24 hours, like, especially when you have children, you have the end of the day. So like at 8, my day starts at 8 p.m. and goes until like midnight to 1 or 2, depending. So I have about 4 hours to try to get stuff done before I get too tired. And time, more time. Because money, like I'm super happy in my life right now, and I'm poor. Not poor, but you know what I mean. Like I'm not wealthy and I'm not rich. I'm not poor, but you know what I mean. We can all use more money, but I think I'd rather have more time.
Understood. Would you feel worse if no one showed up to your wedding or to your funeral?
Well, I'm gonna approach this from a logic standpoint. I'd feel worse if it was my wedding, because I'd be alive to have feelings. If I'm dead, I don't care. So I'd have to go with the wedding thing, because funeral, I'm rotting, I'm decaying. I don't care. I mean, let's say I'm a spirit and I can look down and have feelings, I'd be like, I didn't care about any of you anyway. I'm just kidding. I think the funeral. I'd rather people not show up to my funeral. I'd rather have people show up to my wedding, because, little background, we sort of eloped when we got married. We didn't have a big wedding, and I do want to still have some kind of a big wedding-y thing that I can invite family and friends to. And yes, I really do hope people show up to that. So
They will. Yeah. Come on, they will. Would you rather lose your vision or your hearing?
Hearing, easy. Hearing. I'd rather lose my hearing, especially as a photographer. My eyes are so important, and like to see my children and their faces as they grow up, I'd be devastated if I couldn't see them. Like, oh man, like tiny tear right here. I'm like, it would be really hard to not see your kids, like their faces. And I love seeing. I'm a visual person. I could do without my hearing in a heartbeat.
That's so funny.
Keep my eyes, lose the hearing. Yeah. Easy.
Yeah, I feel like most men would say that.
I think so too. You're right. Most men would say that. What would you do? Would you do hearing, or would you do your sight?
Honestly, not that I'm a man. I would much rather lose my hearing, even though I'm an audio person. So I might take that back, because that's how I learn and that's how I absorb information.
I also think, like, in a safety thing, it's easier to visually see danger, cars coming, animals, wild animals, grizzlies in the distance, or you know what I mean? Storms coming. I just think vision is so much more dynamic to see someone's face as they talk, because like you could start to learn to read lips and stuff, but body language is very telling too. And I could read, whatever we're typing or texting. So I think there's a lot more technology that make being deaf a little bit easier to live with than losing your sight.
I agree. Okay. Would you rather make a phone call or send a text?
Make a phone call. Amy, my wife, is like, she hates phone calls and would rather text every single time. But I think I weirded her out when we were first dating, because I'd call her. She's like, why are you calling me? Because that's what I do. I'd rather talk to people in person than text. And it also, like, you kind of piecemeal a plan very slowly with text, like when you're trying to decide to do stuff. And I'd rather be like, hey, do you want to meet here this time? No? Okay, how about this time? And just like, I feel like you can move faster, make plans faster when you're talking to someone in person. Text is a little bit more subtle, if you're in a meeting or doing something, or with a client, with whatever you're doing. But I'm a phone call kind of person. I make a lot of phone calls for my job, Because part of what I do as a photographer, I get leads from ads I have, and I call people, and sometimes they're a little bit surprised, but the connection that you have with a human when you talk to them and you know, get to learn more about them is so much more powerful than if you're texting them.
Great. Okay. Yeah. Would you rather be Batman or Spider-Man?
Oh, Spider-Man. Easy. Okay, because it's funny. I was just watching Justice League. Have you watched that?
No.
And the kid that plays the Flash asked Batman, he's like, what's your superpower? and Ben Affleck looks to him and goes, I'm rich. Because Batman is essentially just like a rich dude. Yeah. And those are his toys, his Batmobile, his boomerang bat thingamajob, and all that fun stuff. They're all just toys. Whereas like Spider-Man, like you sling webs, you can move super fast, you're super strength, you have your spider sense. And I'm sure he has some other weird talents as well. So I'd rather that. I'd rather be an actual superhero like Spider-Man than just a rich dude, just like Elon Musk on steroids, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Would you rather be stuck on a broken ski lift or in a broken elevator?
That is a good question. Yeah. I'm gonna go with ski lift, actually, for a couple of reasons. The rescue is easier. Number two, a broken elevator just kind of freaks me out a little bit more because like the whole dropping thing, if something goes wrong, would freak me out. Whereas like chairlifts, generally when there's a problem, they just stop and you're just suspended in air and it's easy. Hopefully the operator on either end was like, oh yeah, it's stuck and there's people on there, and you just get a ladder or a rope or something. And I'm not strong enough to do it now, but I'm sure when I was younger, I probably could have like, you know, like gone along the cable and rescued myself or something. I think a ski lift would be easier rescue. And like, it's like, you have to think about it too. An elevator is very claustrophobic, whereas like a ski lift, it's open air. So I feel like I'd be a lot more chill as long as I didn't crash to the ground.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Which could, you know, seeing everything and being so open could really it could bring your anxiety level up.
Well, if you have a fear of heights, absolutely. I think that it just depends. Like, are you claustrophobic or do you have a fear of heights? I'm not really either. So what are you?
I have both.
You have both?
So either one of these is just like a nightmare.
A nightmare, yeah. I don't have either one of those really. I mean, the only time I've ever felt claustrophobic was actually recently when I did it's like a 12-hour plus flight with my daughter, Penelope, and we had to wear our masks the whole time. What? And mine, by the end of the 12 hours of wearing a mask, like I just felt like I couldn't breathe. Yeah. And so I was just feeling like, you know, claustrophobic just right here. Like I just like felt like I couldn't breathe and was kind of having like I'm pro mask, but at that moment, at the end of 12 hours, I was like, I don't want to wear this mask, you know? Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Ski lift. Ski lift.
Feel you. Okay. One more. Would you rather spend the night in a luxury hotel room or a camping ground surrounded by beautiful scenery?
Oof. Oh, this is funny. Because what I do in both those things is very different.
I already feel like I know where this is going.
Yeah, you're right. You know exactly where it's going. Whenever I go to a nice hotel, so with Amy, usually we have a lot of lovemaking that goes on. So, and it's pretty hot. So that's a good one. I like the hotel, I think. But on the other hand, I do enjoy camping a whole lot. My parents took me a lot when we were kids, and man, the smell of a campfire, a lake there for fishing, that's hard to beat too. But they're two very different things. But I think the hotel would win out because it also means to me a nice hotel. I've stayed at you're cracking up. I've stayed at nice hotels like in the city. I love like we're probably going to go visit New York City this summer, And I love visiting. I love visiting the city. I don't like living in the city full time. But a luxury hotel stay with my wife in the city, it's going to be a good time.
Yeah. And on that note, I'm like basically out of breath. But I do, you know, we should have a conversation in the future about why, because you're not the only one. Why do people feel so free to act batshit crazy in hotel rooms? I mean, yeah.
Well, Kahiso, I don't act batshit crazy. I just have a lot of sex. And that is not crazy. That's natural. Oh, it's all natural.
I love where this is going. And on that note, Jordan, thank you so much for subjecting yourself to my would you rather questions. I really appreciated all of your answers.
I love answering them. It's been a pleasure.
And we look forward to doing this again next week.
Sounds good.
And on that note, guys, we will see you next week. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we will catch you on the flip side.
Oh my God, orange is not my new black.